Ya'ate, bienvenidos, and mabuhay. Over the last few weeks, I've heard a lot of rumors about what's happening with a couple of our schools. Some staff members have shared Facebook posts with me about what people are saying about our district, particularly regarding what's happening with Bon Wilson Technical Center and also with Career Prep High School in Shiprock. Anyway, I'd like to use today's address to walk our families through the process, the benefits of this transition, and talk about these two schools and their programs. Let me start with Career Prep. For many years, Career Prep has been our district's version of an alternative high school. It's been great for students who've had difficulties at other high schools, fallen behind in credits, or just needed a different educational environment. So Career Prep was a viable option for a lot of students. The problem is that since many students who enrolled there were well behind in credits, graduation rates were always considerably lower than those of our other high schools. Because our public education department considers low graduation rates to be an issue, Career Prep has been on an intervention status for quite a few years. After last year's graduation rates remained low, the public education department gave us an ultimatum. We could change the entire staff, shut the school down, or significantly restructure the school. However, Principal Brian Paniagua and his staff came up with what we think is a great solution, and that is to reimagine the school as a career and technical education, or CTE school, which actually makes a whole lot of sense for a school already called Career Prep. But what about the students who are already at Career Prep and who don't graduate this year? Well, those students will be given the opportunity to remain at the school. They can take mostly similar courses, but there'll be more of a hands-on approach to learning, which should help all students as they near graduation and begin to enter the workforce. A big thank you to our school board for approving this plan. We look forward to seeing what our restructured CTE school will be like. Now, what about Bon Wilson Technical Center? Why would we close a school that's provided CTE opportunities for so many of our students? Believe me, I understand the concerns and I've seen the negative comments. So let's take this opportunity to shed more light on the situation. Current enrollment data at Bon Wilson shows extremely low student participation across the educational pathways available to Bon Wilson students. Less than 5% of our high school students are currently taking classes at Bon Wilson. Operating these pathways at an isolated site made sense when career and technical education programs were sparse in our area and across the state. But now there's a much greater focus on the need for these programs. We want to offer these opportunities to all of our students in all three of our enrollment areas. In our current situation, there are very few students coming to Bon Wilson from Shiprock because students spend a good portion of their day riding a bus just to take one or two classes. And there are never any Newcomb students because Newcomb is just too far away. Even Kirtland students give up most of an extra period just to ride the bus to Bon Wilson. One narrative I've heard is that we're taking away educational opportunities from students. On the contrary, we can increase opportunities and guarantee equitable access for every learner at Central Consolidated School District as we expand these programs. Crucially, this transition will also serve as a rebirth for Career Prep High School to reinvent its focus and provide critical post-secondary pathways for our most vulnerable students. I would also like to address the comments that closing Bon Wilson is all about saving money. Whoever said that was mostly correct. For those of you who aren't aware, our district created Bon Wilson almost a decade ago when Grace B. Wilson students moved to Judy Nelson Elementary School. Because our public education department had already defunded Grace B. Wilson, they have never participated in any funding for Bon Wilson. So any costs to maintain or improve the property come solely from district funds. And with low enrollment numbers, it costs the district over 8 times what it costs to staff other schools. Once we take into account transportation costs and other logistical concerns, it's clearly fiscally irresponsible for the district to continue to operate a facility that the state practically condemned a decade ago. I hope my explanation makes sense, and I hope everyone realizes we don't take any of these decisions lightly. We're never going to please everyone or make everyone happy, but we will always do our best to make the best decisions for the students of Central Consolidated School District. Since I've spent so much time on these important subjects, I'm going to put off those sports updates until next week. Sorry to those of you who only tune in just to listen to the sports updates, but we'll get you next week. And that's all I have for today. So see you next week. Hagonai. Adios. Paolo.